Everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Tiffany Benson, one part of Team Benson, and today I want to talk to you guys about planning for your summer gardens. And I know this might feel like it's too early to start thinking about your summer garden, but the truth is that last year everything was really hard to find. And when it comes to having a desert garden, your summertime and things that you're going to need for your garden are probably going to come a lot earlier. As you guys can see, I have a full garden back here. So a lot of the things that I can plant that are summer vegetables, I can start them in the ground a lot earlier than a lot of other people. So it's really important that you guys get these things early so that one, if they all go out again, you'll be able to have them, and then two, start your garden early, because if you guys don't know, the desert can get pretty hot. And for a record, we had 45 days of 118 plus degrees. So the more established you can have your plants, the better they're gonna do when they're trying to survive that hot heat garden. And later on, when I start planting out some of my starts that I have that I've been starting inside, I'll show you guys where I'm planting them to as well, to be able to better prepare my garden for that heat. Alright guys, so we're going to start from everything you're possibly going to need so that you are well prepared for your summer garden. And even for those of you guys that it is cold right now, you'll be well prepared for your spring garden. Now the first thing I want to say is make sure you get your pots. If you're going to be planting in pots, which I suggest even if you have garden space out in your beds, always get pots too as well, because you can grow a lot of things in pots, and you can also grow a lot of invasive things in pots too. So things like mint, you can have enough tea for mint, that way you have enough dried for flu and cold season. Some of the other things like bush beans, you cannot take up space in your big beds because you're going to plant bush beans in pots and they will still grow nicely in a pot and do well for you. So those things like that you can plant in pots. So you can save space in your big beds for big giant vegetables like squash or big towering okras or giant tomatoes. So I got a lot of my pots, and I will try and list everything down below where I got it from. So look in the description to see where I got these things from. But I got a lot of my pots from the Dollar Tree. These ones are the stackable ones, which I will take a picture and show you guys what those are looking like right now. And then also I got just some regular pots too as well. It's nice getting pots from the Dollar Tree because they're only $1, and a lot of the pots that I've gotten in the past from the Dollar Tree are still lasting to this day. So I've had them for a number of years and they've held up really, really well. You can also get pots from Home Depot, you can get them from Amazon, you can get them from pretty much anywhere, but that's just a place you can get them for pretty inexpensive. Okay guys, on my patio you can see I have a ton of different types of pots. Those are the stackable trays I got from the Dollar Tree, and then I always save pots that if I ever get some type of vegetable or something in a pot that's in a bigger one, like that one or like that one, I save those so that then I can reuse them. And then I have other things like hanging pots and little decorative metal pots. And then over here you can see I have old pots that I have gotten with the wires, or with the cages on them too as well. And then I also found these pots out at Home Depot. They're just basically a raised planter pot, that in this one I fit 3 jalapeno pepper plants and a parsley plant, so you can grow quite a bit in these too as well. Now the next thing you want to do is also get yourself some trellises. Now trellises allow you to grow vertically, which is 100% necessary in a small space garden. If there is anything you don't learn from my garden, is grow vertically. If you don't learn anything else, learn that, because you can provide a lot of food for your family and a lot of food just to lower that grocery bill as long as you're growing vertically, because you can fit way more stuff in. Now I have tons of videos on how I prepared and made my vertical arches and also just some of the things that I've used for trellises. So I'll link that down below too as well, just so you guys can watch that. But I'll show you just a quick glance of what I have that I'm growing vertically on. So here I have my patio arch trellis that I made. I also have my large arch trellis that I made. Some of the things you can use too are just simple things like chicken wire, putting them up on post. I do have some ones that I purchased. These ones came from Home Depot, and those are just some trellises that you just pop right in, so you don't really have to build them or anything like that. And then another one that I love growing on is my Mighty Crop. This one is one that we do have a promo code for, so I will put it down below because you can get 10% off. And once again, get them before everybody else gets them for their spring and summer gardens. But those ones, it can allow you to grow basically things like tomatoes without having a giant tomato cage. So then you can fit other things down below it, which, look at those broccoli, guys. Isn't that amazing? Another thing you can do with trellises that I like to do is to plant on the very edge of a pot and then train whatever you're planting up. So this one is a tomato plant. So instead of planting the tomato plant in the middle, which this is 2 different tomato plants, I planted it on the very end of this pot here, the very, very back. So then I had all of this room to grow other stuff. Now in this, I will be growing some basil, because basil and tomatoes go really, really well together. And then currently I was trying out some rhubarb, but I don't think it's going to be cold enough for that to continue to grow. Okay, so now we've talked about containers, we've talked about trellises, now let's talk about soil. Now soil is something that I really, really want you guys to focus on. A lot of the healthiness that comes from your garden comes from the soil. I've heard a farmer once tell me that you never grow the plants, you always grow the soil. And this is 100% true. You can have the healthiest garden in the world because you have focused on making sure that the soil is a healthy environment to grow microbials, to have worms, and to have just other good bacteria and good fungi in order to grow nice and healthy plants. So I always make sure that I have compost for my soil. Now, if you're starting a bed from the very, very start, you want to have a mixture of garden soil, or raised bed soil if you're having raised beds, and compost. So I take, when I first started these big giant beds, I got a couple bags of compost, a couple bags of raised bed soil. I use Kellogg's. That one is my favorite one. It's an organic potting mix and raised bed mix. You can get either or. And I also used a couple things. I used some bone meal, just kind of mixed it in there. Now these are going to be backwards, guys, because I'm filming on a phone, so I apologize for that. But I'll have them all linked down below. But I bought some bone meal, and that I used in the very beginning. I do use a little bit of bone meal even now when I'm planting out things, especially if I'm planting things like tomatoes or different things like that. When I dig the hole, I will use a combination of bone meal and then crushed eggshells. And then also something that I wish I had found out about a long time ago, but I know about it now, is fast-acting gypsum. Now gypsum is a sulfur, basically, is what they get from like volcanoes, and that helps the salt in your garden. Now having salt in your garden comes from, especially if you're growing in the city, is going to be a lot coming from the city water. So you'll get a lot of just salt deposits everywhere, and having the gypsum has helped me not have that. And I know a lot of people, the last time I talked about gypsum, said, okay, well, you know, this can do this to your garden, that can do that to your garden, but this was suggested to me by a farmer, and since I started using it, it solved the problem of me having really hard soil. Like my soil was starting to get rock hard, and it was because over the years of me watering with city water, the salt was just really, really piling in there. So the gypsum is helping to break that down. And it's all natural. It comes from volcanoes too as well. It's just a broken down sulfur, which takes normally like I think 10 years from sulfur to go to gypsum. So it allows you to use it a lot earlier. Now the next thing I want to talk about for those of you guys that have citrus trees. Now it's going to be time for you guys to fertilize your citrus tree. So I have this one that I like, and it was suggested to me too as well by the nursery I got the citrus tree from. But it's just a fertilizer that you just put down on top of the soil and then just water it in. I know Valentine's Day and I think 4th of July and Labor Day are when you're supposed to fertilize your citrus plant, but for sure I know Valentine's Day, so I will be putting that on Valentine's Day right before we go to dinner. So now fertilizers I always like to have on hand are going to be fish fertilizer. This is something I use like once a week to once every 2 weeks. When my garden is really active and I'm starting to get a lot of stuff from it, then I don't use it as much because fish fertilizer stinks, and even washing it off you still kind of smell it. So it's something that I just kind of like to put on and let it kind of do its thing, and then harvest like a week later so that then I don't get that smell. But fish fertilizer was something that I used to just get from Home Depot, and for the past couple of trips to Home Depot I was not able to find this. So it's something that I had to get from Amazon, which they do carry it, so I will link that down below too as well for you guys. The other thing that I use for fertilizer wise is going to be worm tea. Now worm tea is something that I get at the AZ Worm Farm, and I know not everybody can get it there. They use it in they put it in a big bubbler, so it's only good for like 4 hours once you get it. Other than that, all the microbes just kind of die in it. But there is a shelf-stable worm tea called Vermistera that I used to use before I found out about the worm farm. So I will link that down below too as well. You guys can get that on Amazon, or I think you can get it on their website. But I know they do sell it on Amazon too as well. So those are typically the only two fertilizers that I really use. I did try another one, which, let me go grab it. Now the other fertilizer that I tried was AgroThrive, and I did like it. It was good, but I don't think that if you are going to use AgroThrive, don't use anything else, because I think that'll just be too many nutrients in your soil, especially if your soil, you don't want to over add things to it. And this has a lot of stuff in it. So either you could do the worm tea, and which is something that I really like. I think things grow at a nice even pace with worm tea and fish fertilizer, or you could use the AgroThrive, and I think things grow a lot faster with that. But I did try it, and it has worked really good wonders on my garden. It's something I'll probably bounce back and forth depending on what's available. Now the next thing I want to talk about is shade cloth. This is going to be your friend if you live in a hot climate. Or for those of you guys that don't live in a hot climate and you still have summers where you're like, oh, I could have grown lettuce even longer, but now it's bolting. This is the secret. This is the actual secret to being able to extend your winter gardens. Like if you are living up north or something like that and you want to still grow lettuce and like cabbages and different things like that that won't grow during the summer, shade cloth. And if you are a desert gardener, you're going to need this. You're going to need lots of it. Make sure you measure out your garden and you have enough to cover every inch of your garden. So my husband, Mr. Benson, put in these wood pillars here that I'm going to use to put the shade cloth on top of to kind of hold it up, because that's the other thing, is that you don't want to completely cover it from top to bottom, because then the pollinators can't get in there, but you do want to cover it enough to where it casts a lot of shade. A lot of people build shade tunnels or little shade structures, and I'm also going to plant a couple of really heat tolerant things like loofah. I see a lot of people in Arizona grow loofah, so I'm going to use that to cover. And then our median cucumbers are another good cover crop that can cover some of the things below. Like if you put it on an arch, they can help you be able to cast a lot of shade, but they can also take the Arizona heat like nobody's business. So those are going to be two things that I'm definitely going to try growing this year. Armenian cucumbers I've always grown and used it for that purpose, but loofah is going to be something new that's new to my garden. But I use a lot of sponges, so I think that that's going to be a key in being able to have more sustainability. But shade cloth, get it now, get it early. I will put a link down below. I get mine on Amazon and I get it in big bundles, but this is something that was hard to find. I didn't have enough of it at first, and I almost lost a lot of my garden last year because I could not find shade cloth anywhere. It sold out at every box store, it sold out of every like little small mom and pop store, and it was sold out on Amazon. So it took me literally probably about almost 3 weeks to get my shade cloth in, and I was devastated. I was like with an umbrella above my vegetables, like, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. So get your shade cloth early. So one thing I almost forgot to put in this video is make sure that you have mulch. Mulch is something that is going to help you be able to retain water. You can have straw mulch, you can have like a composty type mulch, and then you can also have wood chips. Here in the desert, I use wood chips as mulch. Now, a lot of people will tell you that wood chips leach nitrogen from your garden, and yes, it does, but in the desert, we need wood chips because it's really hot and they do help absorb water. So you can just add different things to your garden to help bring in nitrogen to your garden. Planting beans, a lot of beans will have some fixed nitrogen that it'll have in the roots, so that once you clip the top of that bean plant, once the bean dies, it'll leave that nitrogen in your soil. So when it's time to really have a heavily mulched garden in the summer, those bean roots are going to be leaching that nitrogen into your soil. The other thing I want to mention too are have some type of composting bin or some type of like worm compost. I have an in-ground worm compost bin that I put in, and I have a composting worm. They're called red wigglers. They're different from earthworms. My red wigglers, in a small space garden that I grow constantly in, there usually isn't a break in my garden to kind of let the soil rest because we can grow all year long. So those red wigglers literally eat everything in that soil. So if I'm leaving big heavy roots in the soil, because I also do no dig gardens, so if I have like squash roots or tomato roots or okra roots that are just really big and heavy, those red wigglers will eat those roots down, and they will do it in a timely manner while giving me tons of worm compost, which is their poop. So make sure you have some type of worm in there, and I do suggest red wiggler worms. If you live in Arizona, you can get those from Arizona, the AZ Worm Farm, and if you don't, you can also order them online. I'm pretty sure the AZ Worm Farm ships them. If not, you can get them on Amazon, but it's a type called red wiggler. Remember that when you're in a growing season time where it's not as much in your garden, you do need to feed those. So one of the things I do is that, which I have a whole video on how to care for them, but just really quick while we're here, in my beds that I don't have the worm bin where I'm constantly adding new things in, I dig a little hole and I just add a couple of like cabbage leaves or any type of green leaves that I have, maybe some eggshells or just anything like that they can eat, and I just put that in like a little corner of my garden where it doesn't really affect anything and that they can compost it down really quickly. But those are little miracle worms to have. Now, the other thing that I'm really loving this year is my row tunnels. Now, these ones I also got from Amazon. It's just like a little pipe system, and then I just got the netting too as well. This has made everything underneath here look amazing because it has kept all of those cabbage loopers and different things like that off of the vegetables underneath here. Also, it's going to be a lot easier to be able to just put a row cover, or sorry, not a row cover, but a shade cloth over this when it gets super hot, instead of putting in the bug netting. Now, also, I'd like to stop and take a minute to say, don't forget to subscribe to our channel because we are almost to 2,000 subscribers, which we are doing a cool seed giveaway of all the seeds that I deem pretty cool. So we are probably about 30 subscribers away. So if you have a friend that is trying to grow in a hot climate, or just as interested in watching me out here in 100 and something degrees growing a garden, make sure you share the video with them and tell them to subscribe as well. And if you're not already subscribed, make sure you guys do that because we are going to be having the giveaway and it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm excited to be able to share stuff with you guys and have you guys growing the same things in your garden as I'm growing in mine. Now the very last must-have you're going to want to have for your garden are seeds. Seeds or even starts. Don't ever be afraid to just have starts for your garden. It is cheaper to have seeds. But in the beginning, when I first started gardening, I was like, I have to have seeds because otherwise it made me feel a little bit less like a gardener for me to have starts. But that was very silly because starts allow you to be able to learn how the plants grow if you've never grown them before. But yes, it is cheaper to start a garden with seeds. A whole pack of seeds might be like anywhere from 99 cents to $2. Maybe $3 if you get a very rare one, and a start usually is about $3 for one. So make sure you have either or, and have ones that are going to be good for your climate. This is something that I've really worked hard on over the past couple of years, and finding different vegetables that grow really well in my climate. For example, I love to have spinach in a lot of my dishes, but growing regular spinach bolts here very quickly. So in order to have spinach for a longer period of time, I also grow Malabar spinach, because Malabar spinach can hold up to the heat a lot better than regular spinach. So I have both in my garden, but that gives me spinach pretty much all year long. Another thing for small space gardeners is don't forget there's also dwarf plants. I have a dwarf lime tree. I have a new tree that I will be telling you guys about later, which, did I need another tree? No. But did I get it? Yes. So I will talk to you guys about that later in a video. But also melons. I grow a midget cantaloupe melon, and it is a tiny little melon that fits in the palm of your hands, and it doesn't take up a lot of space. So I can still have melons in my small space garden by just growing it on a trellis. So pick seeds that are going to be good for your garden and grow things that are good for your garden. Also leave space for at least one experimental plant, and have that be a plant that you don't know what it tastes like, you don't know how it grows, but it's going to be something that you can learn from, and it'll make you a better gardener. So I hope this video helps, guys. I hope you guys are thinking about planning for your gardens and you're getting everything that you need. Make sure you get it early, because when it runs out, it's horrible. And you don't want to have to try and get things that you may not like the quality of it just because that's the only thing that's left. So start preparing for your gardens. Just hold it in a little space in your backyard or in your garage or wherever until you need it. But the important thing is that you will have it. So I hope this helps, guys. Until next time, grow yourselves a garden, because even a small space can provide you with tons of food. Bye, guys.